Good morning and welcome to the closing plenary of the Resnick Aspen Action Forum. We're going to start our program, so please welcome to the stage Henry Crown Fellow Navin Salem.
Y'all better come in here and sit down. Dan Hoffman, come on, sit down. Okay. It's a little rowdy still. Margarita, stop texting me. I can't read if you're texting me. All right. All right, let's get started. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the many fellows that couldn't be here this week because they are on the front lines doing the hard work. One of those fellows is my Henry Crown classmate, Ami Dror. Last Thursday, Ami left his home with 3 fellow protesters. They didn't say anything. They just started walking from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. On the first day, there were a few thousand that joined in the streets. On the second day, 30,000. And by the fourth day, 150,000 people took to the streets and followed these leaders. Why did they march? 80 kilometers in the blistering Israeli July sun. It's not exactly comfortable. It's because their democracy is at risk, and because it matters. And making change is not easy or comfortable. 29 weeks in, he is still leading, preaching nonviolence, and spreading his infectious positivity. I had a front row seat to all of it last week, and this is what I saw.
היה תלוי בי, אני הייתי בים, אני הייתי עם הילדים שלי. הדבר האחרון שאני רוצה לעשות זה להיות בהפגנות. אבל אין לי ברירה. תחשוב על זה ככה, כך מדינת ישראל, מדינה שעומדת כיסא עם 3 רגליים. החליט מישהו להוריד רגל. הכיסא הזה נופל ומתרסק. עכשיו זה לא הכיסא שלי, זה הכיסא של אבא שלי, של סבא שלי, של הילדים שלי, של החברים שלי, ולי אין ברירה.
של מי האדמה, האוויר והים, של מי העולם? של מי הזהב והיהלומים, למה התן מעלל בכרמים? איך האביב יודע שהגיע הזמן? ולאן האוניות מפליגות? לאן? מי אוהב אותך יותר ממני? מי מצחיק אותך כשאת עצובה? האביב יודע שהגיע הזמן ולאן האוניות מפליגות לאן מי אוהב אותך יותר ממני מי מצחיק אותך כשאת עצובה עד מתי תהיי שלי ולמה את שותקת
And now, please welcome to the stage Sherry Mitchell, the Executive Director of the Land Peace Foundation, and Catherine Wilkinson, the co-founder and Executive Director of the All We Can Save project.
Good morning, beautiful beings. All with that post-seminar glow / sleepiness. My very dear friend and mentor and sister, Sherry, and I are here this morning as weavers. We spent some time together last month thinking about what we wanted to bring into this session as we turn our attention to our planetary crises and possibilities. But we also knew that we wanted to come to know this community before this time together really took shape, to be tending the soil, doing some necessary composting over these 3 days to see what grows. So this is going to be a bit mad with emergence.
Koe Pasidawin. Hello, everyone. And Deliwisi Wanahamugwasit and Najio Banawabskewi. Basilda and Delabama Kawasos no Banawabskewi, Nagakakagus no Tsibaik, Nalita Haziu and Diane. I never talk scripted, so this is a whole new thing for me. I just said to you, my name is Wanahamugwasit. I come from the Penobscot Nation. My family is Bear Clan from the Penobscot Nation and Crow Clan from the Passamaquoddy tribe at Tsibaik. I introduced myself in that way to put myself in context, in relationship with not only my family and my people, but with the place where I come from. I also align myself with a line of ancestors going all the way back to the beginning of time. You all come here with your own stories, your own names, your own ancestors. So I invite you to take a moment to invite them into this space with us. I want to start out by telling you a story. And I am going to stand while I tell you a story because wild things cannot be caged. And I have to move when I'm telling the story so that the story can move within me. So in our tradition, in our mythology, we are told that this is our 4th iteration of life, that we have been here 3 times before. We've made choices that have caused our species to have to exit the planet, and that we've been reseeded here. And so now we are here once again with choices in front of us that are going to determine if our species is going to be forced to exit the planet. So the story that I'm going to tell you comes from the time between the last age and this one. In that time in between, 2 of our sacred beings, Kachiniwisk and Ekchamundo, were at rest. Ekchamundo, the sacred masculine, representing externality, was at ease as a pool of unformed matter. Kachiniwisk had taken the form of the sacred mother and was walking across time with a basket that was woven from an ash tree. She walked across time and she collected all of the hopes, the dreams, the visions of all of those who had lived in the age before. She turned them to berries and she placed them in her basket. When she had walked a sufficient distance, she sat down under an ash tree, rested, and ate the berries that were in the basket. When she was finished, she stood up, and her basket was empty, but her womb was round with the possibilities of this new life. She then walked back to the place where Ekchamundo was at rest and began to speak across the waters of that pool. And as she spoke, the vibration and frequency of her words began to move that pool, waking— and together they created all of the form that was to exist in this new age. Once all of the forms that were to exist in this new age had been completed, Ecumundo put his arms around that pool of matter and created the great seed of life. They brought that seed of life between the two of them, and they began to dance and sing a song of creation. And as they sang that song of creation, the pitch and the volume of their song began to rise, and it rose and rose until it reached a resonance that was capable of bursting that seed and spreading that life across the known universe. This story is at the heart of all of our web of life stories. These stories are not shallow stories. They are not superficial stories. These are stories of quantum entanglement that help us understand our place in the larger sphere of life. What quantum entanglement tells us is that any matter that was once connected physically can never be disconnected energetically. As a result, we can never be disconnected from the life that we were born with, that we lived within the seed with. All of the things that exist within the known universe, not just the people, not just the plants, not just the animals, but the rocks and the water and the winds. It's hard for us to understand what this connection means, how it feels. So I like to describe it as phantom limb syndrome, because people can understand that. They think about muscle memory and nerve memory, right? So when somebody has an amputation, say they have their leg amputated below the knee, and they still get sensations in the foot that's no longer physically there, they call that phantom limb syndrome. They say that this is just an experience of a misfiring in your brain due to nerve memory and muscle memory. What that is entanglement. It's because the matter that once made up the lower leg, though physically separated, is still present energetically. And in our tradition, we also believe spiritually. And so what does this tell us about our connections to one another? We are living in a time of unprecedented mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual distress. Would you agree? Yeah. And so how many of you have had the experience of feeling a hum of anxiety in your body that you can't quite put a name on? Be courageous. Remember, this is about courage. How many of you have ever been driving down the road or sitting at home or walking through the forest, and all of a sudden you are swamped by a feeling of immense grief, but there's nothing immediately around you that explains this deep sense of grief that you're feeling? I have. How many of you have been in a group of friends where you've felt fulfilled and connected, and you suddenly feel this moment of deep loneliness? How many of you have woken in the night in a state of sweaty panic without remembering what the cause was? Because we have been conditioned to avoid pain, we immediately begin wondering, how do we separate ourselves from this discomfort? How do we move away from the pain? How do we numb it? We begin to wonder, what's wrong with us? How many of you, upon having these experiences, have wondered what was wrong with you? And so we numb, and we detach, and we medicate to avoid this pain. But what if this pain that you're feeling is not evidence of something that is wrong with you? What if it's proof of something that is being righted within you? What if, instead of pushing away from the pain, we leaned across the fracture and tried to discover what this pain had to teach us. What if this pain is a map that's leading us back to the connection with the rest of life, the rest of the matter that we have become separated from? What if this journey is bringing us closer to a full embodiment with our humanity? And what if within that full embodiment with our humanity, we realize that life is not about moments of perfection and feeling good. It's about being able to feel everything and to use that as information that will guide us to our most deep, collective expression of oneness.
I think it can be hard to remember in a place this beautiful, on a day this beautiful, that the living systems of our planet are unraveling. There was a paper that came out while we were here this week about the Atlantic Ocean circulation and the potential of collapse of that circulation as early as 2025. That movie, The Day After Tomorrow, it's that. And the last time the conditions in our atmosphere were what they are now, our species was not around. So we are truly in profoundly uncharted territory. And I think it presses up against the edges of what the mind can hold. So we wanted to offer an invitation to come into an encounter with the climate crisis this morning from our bodies and our emotional beings. So I'd invite all of you, as much as you can in these chairs, to come into a comfortable seat with your feet on the ground. I can't touch it, but it's there. And if you're comfortable, and close or soft focus your eyes. And take a generous breath. And as breath breathes you, notice the firmness and the steadiness of earth. Notice the way the earth holds you. Bring into your awareness a place or a piece of the beyond human world that you love. Rub that sponge of gratitude on it. And notice how that feels in your body. And continuing to breathe, welcome into your awareness the reality of our climate and ecological crisis. What do you see? What do you hear? Notice what may be lost and what is already being taken away. And how does that land in your body? How does it feel to hold the climate crisis in your head, in your heart, and in your profoundly capable hands? You are a singular and connected node within the community of life. And whatever is arising in you is a form of wisdom. Reflecting Earth's pain and Earth's power. Take another generous breath. And when you're ready, reopen, refocus your eyes, and make eye contact with someone next to you or across from you. Last season on A Matter of Degrees, I interviewed Dr. Kriti Kanko, who is a Zen priest and a climate scientist, who told me in no uncertain words that we have to fucking feel our feelings or we will take shallow action. We will get stuck in that gap between seeing and knowing and even caring, and that heartfelt participation that we talked about on the first day. So it is not wrong to go back internally for that which we have forgotten.
So let's go back to the story that we were just in. I'm going to come over here so my friends can see me. I see you. Let's go back to that story for a moment, and let's consider the possibility that this moment of deep grief that we have been feeling is the deep grief of that mother whale who carried her baby around for 17 days, trying to show us what we have been doing to their ecosystem. Let us consider that the loneliness that we're experiencing is the loneliness of the last white rhino on the planet who has no one left in their species to communicate with. Let us consider that the anxiety that we're experiencing is the anxiety of all those who are fleeing war zones or searching for sustenance for their children. Let's consider the possibility that the panic that we're feeling in our bodies is the panic of the trees, as the fires in the Amazon and the loggers come rolling toward them. And then let us consider the possibility that this is the invisible help that we have been walking past. That the voices of the trees and the whales and the rhinos are simply another signal that are guiding us back to a way of being that is connected to the very source of our lives. When I was a young activist, just a couple of years ago, when I used to believe that I could change the world with one bold action, I had wise elders who pulled me aside, potentially by my ear. We won't talk about that. And explained to me that if I continued on the path that I was on, not only would the work burn me out, but it would break my heart. And they made me go home for 6 months. And they made me sit with the possibility that we had lost everything. They made me surrender to the despair of that moment of realization and to go through all of the processes of grief that I would experience within that reality. And then they allowed me to come back. And when I came back without expectation of my ability to do anything. I came back without hubris. I came back humble and ready to serve life. And so as you're doing this work and as you're going through these processes, I encourage you to remember that wisdom. There are a lot of people in here that are fighting for their rights and for the rights of others. This is very noble and important work. One of the things that we have to remember is that rights do not stand alone. Rights have no legs. They stand upon a foundation of responsibilities. And if we are going to stand up and demand a right, we also have to simultaneously be co-creating the world in which that right can exist. And if we're not doing that work, then all we're doing is echoing into the darkness. A friend of mine sent me this book titled Leading with Love. Have any of you seen it? It's just a book of little quotes by amazing people. There's a quote in there by Angela Davis that just I read over and over and over again, and it just stayed inside my body. And she talks about how what was radical in her time is different for her today in this time of sitting with all of her self. That what's radical today is the process of self-care and healing and deep connection to the body and to the spiritual dimension. And at the end of that quote, she says, "We have to imagine the kind of society we want to inhabit. We can't simply assume that somehow, magically, we're going to create a new society in which there will be new human beings. No. We have to begin the process of creating the society we want to inhabit now." When I read that, what stuck out for me, is that we have to imagine what that society is going to look like, what it's going to feel like, and how we're going to behave in it. And then we need to begin the process of being those people who are behaving in those ways today. Because if we're not the people who can inhabit this new world that we're visioning, then we're not capable of imagining it into being. One of my favorite authors is Kiowa author N. Scott Momaday. And what N. Scott Momaday says is, we are what we imagine. Our very existence consists in our imagination of ourselves. Our best destiny is to imagine at least who and what and that we are. And the greatest tragedy that can befall us is to go unimagined. When I think about what we have been imagining into being, one of the things that strikes me is that we are imagining ourselves in accordance to someone else's dream, right? If we're going to truly imagine ourselves, we have to start telling some deeper truths. We have to stop repeating the living lies. Lies that glorify conquest, genocide, slavery, colonization, and the destructive imposition of homogeneity. This is odd for me because I'm not used to talking scripted. I'm used to just free-flowing. And this is the one that came to me the other day when I was listening to you speak, Bio. We have to stop imagining ourselves within a binary. We have to stop imagining ourselves as either colonizers or organizers, right? We have to stop imagining ourselves as advocates or resistance fighters. And we have to start imagining who we are when our cells are not organized in opposition, but aligned with our deepest truths. And so the people who are going to be able to build this new world are going to be those who have made the commitment to do the hard work of unlearning, relearning, and learning. So when I think about this, I organize that inappropriately. I think about relearning, unlearning, and then learning. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to reach back. We're going to have to reach back for the truth of our ancestors' communal living that allowed our humanoid species to continue to exist when all others went extinct. There have been 9 humanoid species on this planet. We are the only one that continues to exist. We continue to exist because we learned how to live communally, cooperatively, and collectively, with care for one another. We also have to go back and we have to reclaim our ancestral knowledge about how to live in balanced harmony with our ecosystems. And we have to extract ourselves, unlearn the bondage of colonization, the myth of separation, the disease of commodification of our bodies, and endless overconsumption. And we have to let go of the illusion of disposability. And then we have to learn the collective narrative of a new world while simultaneously becoming the human beings who are capable of inhabiting it. And within this journey, there are 2 types of hope. There's magical hope that believes in this miraculous appearance of this new world. And then there's realistic hope, which is based on our experience of our own skills and capacities to overcome difficult times, right? And one of the things that we learn along this journey, you'll notice the title of our talk is The Journey to Wholeness. One of the realities that we are forced to face is that there is no journey to wholeness. There is only the acceptance of the whole that is present before us right now. And the journey to wholeness as some other place that exists out here is a distraction from the work that needs to be done right here, right now. Because when we take hope of some far-fetched view of perfected wholeness and we place that on our horizon, it creates within us the very real danger of believing that we belong somewhere other than the time that we were born to be in this moment right now. It prevents us from being able to look the crises of our time in the eye and to rise up in our fullness and meet the challenge that is presented before us. And it also creates the risk within us of us believing in this magical idea that the promised land is somewhere other than right beneath our feet.
I suspect, like a lot of you, this forum started kind of stirring in me before I got here. On my last flight I sat next to Lorena, who, when I pulled out the seminar readings, pinned me immediately, said hello, cracked my little, like, introverted pandemic shell, and asked me, you know, how did you get into this? What do you do, and how did you get into this work? And I think I gave you some very sort of bland, half-hearted answer about, a long time, many hats. Because it maybe was not the right place to share that I think, like so many of us, I was initiated into the work that I do around climate in rupture, right? At the age of 16, I had an encounter, thanks to a really amazing teacher, Susan Tensley Daly, with a fresh, huge clear cut in Pisgah National Forest in the southern Appalachians, these beautiful, wise mountains that woke me up, that broke me open. I still have my little hand-bound journal from that time and the things that I wrote to myself at age 16. So I maybe disagree with David White that we've so very much left those younger selves who I think often see with such clarity behind. And I don't think I had the language, no, I'm certain I did not have the language for it at the time to name what I was seeing as extractive capitalism, as the gap between the way that we can do things and the way that we do things in this dominant economy. And I certainly was not processing at the time the relationship between the removal of the Cherokee, whose ancestral homelands that clear cut was on, and later the establishment of the national forests in this country and the management of those forests as a resource, an economic resource, that all came together to form the possibility for this clear cut in the spring of 1999. And it would be another 20 years before I learned that one of my ancestors, a man named John Bell, who was a Tennessee politician, when he served in the US House of Representatives, he was the chairman of the House Committee on Indian Affairs. And he was in that role in 1830 when the Indian Removal Act was passed. That led to the forced displacement of the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, and the Muskogee, Joy Harjo's people. So he was part of making fugitive the people of those lands and part of killing thousands of people as they were forcibly marched west. And so what does it mean that I have some blood and some genes from this man that live in me even as I try to do the work of building some kind of livable future? And if time is really sloshy, and this is all still terribly present, and if my people might be the wrong people to forgive. So at the end of this week, I am very much sitting in and with the trouble.
There are so many distortions within this dream. In my tradition, we have this sacred way of life. It's not a practice that we have. We're not practicing at anything. We are being ourselves. This sacred way of life is called Skajinawe Bamasawagan. It's a concentric way of being in relationship with the rest of life. And within this tradition, what we understand is that our first ecosystem is the womb of our mother. We are born into that first ecosystem where we are nurtured and sustained through an umbilical connection to our birth mother. And in our second birth, we are born into this physical world where that umbilical connection between our birth mother and us is transferred to the earth mother. Until 1978, this way of life was outlawed in the United States. We weren't allowed to participate in our ceremonial ways of being, and we weren't allowed to speak our language. During that time, my grandmother, who was born at the Passamaquoddy Reservation at Tibike, during a time of the Indian Removal Act, during the time of the boarding school era. And she was being raised by her grandmother. And she didn't speak a word of English. And one day there was a knock upon their door, and my great-great-grandmother was told, if you don't send her to school at the Indian Day School, we're going to take her and we're going to send her away to a boarding school. And so my great-great-grandmother, in fear that her only grandchild would be taken away from the community, sent her to school. In the school, the Commissioner of Indian Affairs had made it illegal, prohibited, to speak any native languages. And so any child who spoke a native language in that school was beaten. And so my 8-year-old grandmother was taken away from the only thing that she had ever known, which was the love of her grandmother and her cultural ways of being. And every time she opened her mouth to try to communicate, to ask a question, to explain her position, she was beaten. And she had her language beaten out of her. And when I asked her to teach me the language when I was growing up, she said things like, the way that I speak is the old way. They speak a new version of the language today. Oh, I'm not a good teacher. I don't really have the time. And I was angry, I was hurt. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned her story. And so in my lifetime, in 1978, there was a law that was passed that said that American Indian people could be themselves. We could speak our mother tongue in our motherland. But even though we were given permission to be ourselves, our ways of seeing, our ways of knowing, and our ways of being were misunderstood. And my dearly beloved brother, Bayo, talked about psychiatry being the police of the cracks. Our ways of knowing, seeing, and being were the cracks. So they got mental health diagnoses, DSMs. They were labeled as disorders because we were out of order with the current colonial paradigm. This same distortion affects all of you. You have all been impacted by these ways of seeing, these ways of knowing, these ways of being. You've been separated and distanced from Mother Earth as a result of those distortions. And you've had the impacts of abandonment that rise up from that separation. I once heard Geba Mate talking about how his mother, his loving mother, gave him to a Christian family to protect him from the Nazis. And that family loved him and cared for him and treated him well. But he still has all of the clinical symptoms of abandonment from his mother. And even after years of training in trauma and working out in the world, decades of life, those symptoms still rise up within him. He's able to manage them. They no longer ride the bus, but they're still present in his body. That separation from the earth is present in our bodies as well. And as a result of that aching, that longing from that separation that we have, we've carelessly wandered around the earth, turning every stone. And in the process of that turning, we've left imprints that have created this autogenous illness in Mother Earth. And this illness within Mother Earth is making all of us sick. I have my own story of separation from my mother. And as a result of that story of separation, I have suffered my whole life with gastrointestinal and autoimmune illnesses. Because when babies are born today, their cords are immediately cut and clamped. In an indigenous birthing ceremony, there's a recognition that there's vital information that's passed between the mother and the child that only happens after birth. There are vital fluids that are being passed. There's an encoded information that is being provided to that child to prepare them for life on this side. And when we cut and we clamp that cord, we're denying the child of the benefit of all of that information and those protective elements, those protective fluids. In a traditional birth, the child is laid upon the mother with the cord intact until the information transfer stops and the cord stops pulsing. And it's only at that time that the cord is cut and clamped. And the child never leaves the body of the mother. And so all of those beneficial symbiotic bacteria on the skin of the mother in her breast milk are passed on to the child, and that actually forms the child's microbiome. When that process is disrupted in these sterile, institutionalized birthing centers, the child picks up the bacteria of the hospital, and that forms the microbiome of the child, which causes all of these downstream schisms, right? All of this gut health issues, all of these autoimmune illnesses, all of these cognitive dysfunctions. That's all the result of this violent separation from our umbilical connection to the sources of our life. And we're experiencing those on large and small scales. We're out of time. We're going to keep going. So one of the things that happened to me in this healing crisis that I had was I reached a point where I could no longer function. I was forced to slow down. And in the process of being forced to slow down, I had to pay very close attention to the very limited amount of energy that I had. And because I had a limited amount of energy, I chose very carefully between what I was going to do. And in the process of doing that, something remarkable happened. I noticed that when I was engaging in activities that tore something down, bringing down the man, right? My energy was gone for 3 to 4 days after. When I engaged in activities that supported and were actively creating the world that I wanted to inhabit, my energy stayed up for 3 or 4 days. And so now those activities of tearing down, I recognize are acts of conquest. I now call that period of my life, when I was engaged in those activities, the era of conquest activism. And what I realized was when I was aligning my energy with death, it was slowly killing me. But when I began aligning my energy with life, it began to build me back up. And the second thing that I realized, because I would lay on the earth because it restored my energy, one day as I was laying there, I rolled onto my belly and I reached my heart out to the heart of Mother Earth. And I felt her reaching back. So not only did I realize that I was connected to this wide web of life that lives upon the surface of the earth, but there was an actual living being at the heart of this earth. And in that moment, another key turned in a lock for me. And I became more fully a representation of who I truly am.
I have a hope, maybe even a deep-rooted dream, that we are at a crossroads, at the edge of the fossil fuel economy. as Lorena and I were landing in Aspen the other day, and we taxied past that long parking lot of private jets, I was like, be gone, be gone, be gone, be gone, be gone, as my carbon emissions for the day eclipsed those of most people in a year. Emissions that will stay in the atmosphere for decades. But I hope we are moving beyond this era in which 1 in 5 people who die every year die because of the combustion of coal, oil, and gas. We do not talk about this violence because it is so dispersed. And who would we call into the tribunal? Yeah, the CEO of Chevron, financiers at JP Morgan Chase, the politicians who stand in the way of even the most tepid climate policy. But maybe also me, right? Maybe also those of us who are participants in the slice of humanity that are consuming at a level that is wholly untenable with a functioning planet. And the thing that is exciting about this moment is we have an incredibly abundant toolbox of solutions. It would be one thing if scientists were telling us the window is rapidly closing, closing. It's not quite closed yet, and we didn't have anything to stick in the crack, right? And try to open it back up, but we do. Another thing that came out this week, we are on the cusp of meeting all new energy demand in the world with renewables, which is gonna mean that we're at the point that renewables can actually start eating into those hydrocarbons. This is so exciting and happened so much more quickly than people expected. So we're in this decade that may matter more than any in the history of human life, at least as far as the continuance of human life goes. It is this moment that is fleeting, that is precious. It is a magnificent thing to be alive and embodied and capable in a moment that matters as much as this one. And I fundamentally believe that we are each a node of possibility in this moment of transformation, and possibly, something like climate healing. And I also fundamentally believe that we cannot go it alone. You know, carbon, the great villain in all of this, is the atomic collaborator. Carbon likes to hold hands and do things together. And I think in this world where maps quite literally no longer work, because the coastlines are slipping under the sea so quickly, because forests that were there are gone in a flash, that we need navigational spaces, like what we've been in this week, like what we do at the All We Can Save project with climate wayfinding, spaces where we can honor and hold the questions together, to look inward, to look outward, to look forward, and doing that in intimate community. And spaces to remember that our ancestry includes 3.8 billion years of life moving forward to more life. Right? Despite every odd, it is such a miracle that we are here, much less in an aspen grove. And even though we are a young and foolish species with a terrifying amount of might, we are capable as moving as and with life force. And I think we do that when we are engaged at the nexus of authentic power and our deep joy. And I hope that that can be more and more the gift that we bring in this moment where there are no guarantees, and even if we win, whatever that means, we are going to lose a lot. And so we're going to need to hold each other as we go through this liminal time.
You're doing great. 3 more minutes, we'll be done. So I'm just going to say a few closing words, and then I'm going to turn it over to my sister here to close us out with a beautiful reading. I brought some brochures for those of you who want to know how I am now living my life in relationship to what I've learned that I explained to you, but also to talk about what we do in those spaces, the Land Peace Foundation. But right now what I want to do is I want to remind you of some things that I have learned along the way. There is a Chickasaw author named Linda Hogan who wrote, "Walking, I am listening in a deeper way. Suddenly, all my ancestors are behind me. Watch, listen, they say. You are the result of the love of thousands." And so when we think about what Catherine just said, that we are in a line of unfolding life that's billions of years old, and thousands of people had to love in order for us to get here, because hate is too weak a power to carry life forward, then we have to realize that we are the dream of our ancestors come to life. That our ancestors had a dream of us, and they breathed life into that dream every day until it was strong enough for us to walk into this world as flesh and blood. We are now the dreamers who will dream the next generations into being. So as you go forward and you walk upon this earth, I encourage you to walk very, very gently, very consciously, and to remember that you have the responsibility of dreaming the next generations into being. And I hope that you will all dream well. Thank you. Kachiwaliwan.
This is a poem called Waning Gibbous. What is generosity if not moon casting her glow? Even when the ground that catches soft light is red clay, ripped raw. In store for another stock-stacked warehouse, all parking and lots, or another treeless cul-de-sac coil. Still, moon holds her midway to midway shape. So steady, even as she shifts. This grace is possible. Another climate summer is upon us now. Deluges upon us, domes of blistering heat upon us, and upon us, red line after red line of any pie in sky. And I cast about for role models in this edge time. But poised right there above us, on all but the darkest nights, a shaded sphere, like something precious on a high shelf, showing us the way. To be moon, light low. To be moon, bear your phases. And to be moon, stick with your planet, even when. Thank you.
And now, please welcome to the stage the Executive Director of the Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa, Ayo Maji.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I have a very simple task, and mine is to make an invitation to all of us who've been part of this journey in the past 4 days. A journey of learning, new connections, new appreciation, new understanding. And for some of us, it's possible that the process of healing and repairing has started. A few minutes ago, I was saying to my seminar group how glad and thankful I was that they let me into their space. And they shared with me a lot that I'm taking on, living from here. So I'd like to invite, at this point, to open up the space to some of us who may have something to share with the rest of us. How have you been inspired? What are you taking from here? What does your journey look like after the 4 days you've spent on the Aspen Meadows? I'd like you to come up stage to share a commitment or an action pledge, if you're moved to do so. And we'd have just a minute for you, should you be coming out to share how you intend to go on from here. Could you please come to the right-hand side of the stage? We'd like to hear, how you're moving on from here. Thank you.
All right. So I was really moved by that last conversation, so I had 2 pledges. The first one was to get Catherine to sign the book, so thank you. Pledge number 1 done. So DAR opened this week by honoring this sacred place where people have gathered for generations to write stories that have become our stories. And she said it's important that we gather here in this place, in this space, to write stories for the next generation. But there's a problem. Catherine and Sherry reminded us. The plane landing, the carbon emissions, gathering costs this planet. Waste, water in this hotel, emissions from the plane rides, from all the different places that we've come from. But we must gather. We have to get together in this sacred space because our stories are necessary. You've had an amazing week here, right? Wow. There's no way we can avoid gathering. The world needs us to gather. So, here's my pledge. 3 things. I learned this spending time with amazing fellows here. I realized there's many people working to heal this planet, to build the power of this planet to compensate for all the things that we do to it. So, starting next year, building towards next year Action Forum, we're going to plant the AGLN carbon forest so all of our emissions will be taken out of the air. We're going to use the recipes in Catherine's book so that we become waste and water neutral. And the third thing is all of us are going to learn our relationship with the planet. Every day I carry this little thing around with me that tells me when I wake up and when I go to sleep what kind of a relationship I have with this planet and what changes I can make. And I'd love for everybody here to just join me on that journey. So next year, when we gather to write the stories of our generation, for the next generation, we can be sure that there will be a planet for them. Thank you.
Hi, some of you in the room know what we're doing, so you're welcome to stand or come on up.
While the youth make their way, let me just say, the youth mental health crisis that we have in our country will not be solved without the voice of our youth leading the way. And over the last 2 days, we've had the privilege to present a project that we've been working on with the youth and have conversations to unpack that and to take their lead. And I just got to tell you, these are the most brilliant, courageous, bold, and fearless leaders, and the future is bright in this place because of these youth that are here. Could y'all just help me thank the youth, and y'all stand up that are here today. And I got to say, I'm representing what we now have affectionately called a mega venture. What started as my venture that quickly became so much bigger than anything one person could do. And with Shami and Dale and Mike O'Neill, who's not here, and with the voice of our youth, we have tried to put together something to really speak hope and change to address the mental health crisis. And so together, on behalf of the hundreds of millions of kids that need our help, and the voice of these guys who've been breathing life into this, and all of our organizations that it represent, I want to read a pledge that we've all made together, and we want to be held accountable to achieve it. And our pledge is, we will tech enable the science of hope and deliver comprehensive youth mental health and well-being for 1 million youth, beginning in Mississippi and beyond, by December 2024. Thank you all, and please thank these guys.
Thank you very much for the courage on display, and I can only wish you Godspeed. At this point, I think Dar is coming up next. Thank you all.
All right, what a journey we've been on, huh? I'm going to begin to close us. And to do that and to seal this space we've created, I would love to invite the incredible Gina Breedlove onto stage.
Morning. Ha. There we are. From here, over, the beautiful orange, looking like a sunset shirt. And you, beloved, in the back of the room. Yes, from here over. Are you ready? La, la, la. Sing with me, please. Let me give you an image and an intention. Conjure up in this moment your best day. Your best day. My best day, guiding my grandson's head as he emerged from my daughter's body in a pool full of water in our home. What's yours? Maybe you have many. Choose one. And from that place, inhaling together. La. Yes. And again. Hold your position, please. With that fly hat. Here. Right here. In the green. And the beloved in front of you. From here over to here. La. From your best day. La. 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 You got it? Beautiful black and white dress. Beloveds, after the green, here, to where my beloved is sitting. Sis, raise your hand. There, and all the way to the back. La. You feel me? La. La. I don't mind harmony. And here to the window, love. If you don't have a voice today, lean into mine. Love. From your position, love, 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 love. Let's change the la to love. Let me give you your notes. La, 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 la. Together, love. La, la. Where y'all at? Again, together, love. Hold that, feel the vibration for a moment. So what do we do with the grief? I felt so much grief welling in my body, finding its way to my throat, to my eyes, listening to our beloveds, Catherine and Sherry. Tell us. Where does it go, family? How do we move it through so that we can look and see and show up in the ways that we are able? Sound is one way. Putting it in your sound, gathering your breath, drawing it up. If you are blessed to make sound, allowing it to come out of your mouth. Movement, stamping your feet, dancing, weeping, wailing. But now we are singing together. From your best day. La, 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 la. Together, love. I invite you, please, to take in everyone in the room. Look around, see who's on this journey with you. Take in your family, if you will. And this next love, I invite you to share with those folk around you. Tone love into the base of their throat, into the beating heart, into the solar plexus, onto their skin. Imagine from your best day. Some of us have been doing this all week. If you've not done it, teach the other folk at your table how to do it. And let us share love and the energetic of love with each other right now. Inhaling together, holding your position and your note, but giving it to each other. And again, and now give some to yourself. I say right here, as we lean into and borrow from chakra science, you know the energy centers of the body. This is your will, right? Send some love to your will, family. Inhaling together, holding your note. Let it penetrate the pores and seep into your blood, and feeling the energetic as we come to and begin to close the spaces that we have opened. All that you have left on this land, in our room, there was a lot of grief letting. We did our rituals beforehand to ask the earth for permission. And all that you have gained, I've made some new friends. right? New knowings, all that you are taking with you and all that you are leaving behind. But in my tradition, we close the spaces that we have opened. We seal it shut from deep beneath the earth to the beings that we call stars. And what we gather and take with us is the inhaling together. Love. Please, for one more moment, soften your eyes or close them. Or cast them on your own body. Inhaling and exhaling at your own pace, family. Breathe. Find your way to the vibration of your beating heart. Gong, 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 gong. Something each of us has in common. Find your way to the rhythm of your beating heart. Your constant companion. I would like to leave you with a mantra. When you feel frightened, lost, when we are turning toward the bigness of what we are facing. Gong, 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 gong. When you cannot remember your name. Gong, 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 gong. Find your way to your beating heart. Maybe it'll be gong, 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 gong. And breathe into it in that moment. Find your way. Give your heart a mantra. I will give you one, and please find one that feels good in your mouth and your spirit. Mine is, I'm here. I'm here, 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 I'm here. What is yours saying? I love, I am, I sing, I dance, I smile, I laugh, I weep, I wail, I live, I strong, I fall, I stand, I stand. What is your heart mantra? I promise you, give it a song. For those moments in these all of a sudden type times that we turn a corner and something unimaginable is happening. Coming back to ourselves, to our breath, to our blood, to our bone, to our marrow, to what connects us to those and how we love. One way is the song of your beating heart. I'm here. I dream, I pray, I act, I move, I lay, I run, I love, I pause, I listen, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Give your heart a song. Give your heart a song. Inhaling and exhaling. I want to close the space that I have opened with this knowing. My joy is like a field so warm. It blooms with flowers all over the earth. My tears are like a river of pain, so vast that it fills the far oceans. Please call me by my true names, so my heart can wake up. And I'll know that my joy and my pain are one. Inhaling and exhaling together. One big inhale through your nose, family. Exhale with sound. Ha! Once more, inhaling together. Exhaling. Ha! Grace to you. Blessings, the beings of mercy and love. May you go well. And I look forward to touching hands and voice with you again. I will look for you. Blessed be. Shh. Thank you. Just lean in is all. Much love. Thank you.
Unabashed gratitude, you guys, for you all. They say behind every well-executed program is like 1,000 women. So I do want to just give a few really intentional thanks here. First, to the Aspen Institute logistics team, and in particular, Deborah Murphy and Christian Devers. Let me say them all, and then we'll give, as David White says, thunderous applause at the end. The Aspen Meadows Resort team, especially Jamie Weber, and all the people that cleaned our spaces, that cooked for us, that held this container for us, that cleaned our rooms, that drove us around. And many of you know Olivia O'Neill. And many of you know Charlotte Lewis. Where's Charlotte? Charlotte, can you wave your, I know I didn't tell you I was gonna, wherever Charlotte is. Oh, okay. Oh, there she is. Okay. Charlotte has been the unsung hero of this entire experience, just managing everything with such incredible grace. So I would love for us all to stand and give a huge thanks to Charlotte and Olivia. And you can stay on your feet because this will be short. The idea for this week was born from the question, what are the enabling conditions for truly transformational action? And a lot of us have a lot of thoughts on that. But what we came to was we need to be in deep fellowship with one another, things that we know how to do, but let's reactivate that. And as Catherine reminded us, we need to act not from a shallow place, but from the depth of who we are and of everything we're coming into this room with. Bio also reminded us of the ants in the spiral. And he said it's not always an infection that causes the ant to leave the spiral and go to the forest and make some magic. So my invitation for us is maybe it's each other. Maybe it's the laughter. Maybe it's the reading. Maybe it's the fellowship. Maybe it's the community we've built today and this week that takes us out of that spiral and into the forest. So let this community be a forest for each other. This is the beginning and a reinvigoration of something incredible. So I'd love for you to just take a 360 view, look each other in the eyes, and just take a moment to say thank you. And thank you all so much. A thunderous applause for each other. Safe travels, everyone. I'll see you soon.